Formation in the quiet places, mission in the heat of battle, and a legacy of faith in the land promised by God, entrusted to his people for generations. Now the stillness breaks. The river has parted and the people move forward. The book of Joshua reveals a faith that does not remain still, but steps boldly into the mission of God, not by strength alone, not by strategy or sword, but by obedience to his word. Walls fall at the sound of praise. Cities are taken by trust. Victory comes not through might, but through faithfulness. The same God who calls us also goes before us. And as his people step into his promises, faith is no longer formed in quiet. It lives in the heat of battle. To follow where he leads, to trust when the outcome is unseen, to move forward in faith when standing still is safer. This is the mission.
Please read with me in Joshua 8, verses 1 through 29. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not fear and do not be dismayed. Take all the fighting men with you and arise. Go up to Ai. See, I have given into your hand the king of Ai and his people, his city and his land. And you shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king. Only its spoils and its livestock you shall take as plunder for yourselves. Lay an ambush against the city behind it." So Joshua and all the fighting men arose to go up to Ai. And Joshua chose 30,000 mighty men of valor and sent them out by night. And he commanded them, "Behold, you shall lie in ambush against the city behind it. Do not go very far from the city, but all of you remain ready. And I and all the people who are with me will approach the city, and when they come out against us just as before, we shall flee before them. And they will come out after us until we have drawn them away from the city. For they will say, 'They are fleeing from us, just as before.' So we will flee before them. Then you shall rise up from the ambush and seize the city, for the Lord your God will give it into your hand. And as soon as you have taken the city, you shall set the city on fire. You shall do according to the word of the Lord. See, I have commanded you." So Joshua sent them out, and they went to the place of ambush and lay between Bethel and Ai, to the west of Ai, but Joshua spent the night among the people. Joshua arose early in the morning and mustered the people and went up, he and the elders of Israel, before the people of Ai. And all the fighting men who were with him went up and drew near before the city and encamped on the north side of Ai, with a ravine between them and Ai. He took about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai to the west of the city. So they stationed the forces, the main encampment that was north of the city and its rear guard west of the city. But Joshua spent the night in the valley. And as soon as the king of Ai saw this, he and all his people, the men of the city, hurried and went out early to the appointed place toward the Arabah to meet Israel in battle. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him behind the city. And Joshua and all Israel pretended to be beaten before them and fled in the direction of the wilderness. So all the people who were in the city were called together to pursue them. And as they pursued Joshua, they were drawn away from the city. Not a man was left in Ai or Bethel who did not go out after Israel. They left the city open and pursued Israel. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Stretch out the javelin that is in your hand toward Ai, for I will give it into your hand." And Joshua stretched out the javelin that was in his hand toward the city. And the men in the ambush rose quickly out of their place. And as soon as he had stretched out his hand, they ran and entered the city and captured it. And they hurried to set the city on fire. So when the men of Ai looked back, behold, the smoke of the city went up to heaven. And they had no power to flee this way or that, for the people who fled in the wilderness turned back against the pursuers. And when Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had captured the city, and that the smoke of the city went up, then they turned back and struck down the men of Ai. And the others came out from the city against them, so they were in the midst of Israel, some on this side and some on that side. And Israel struck them down until there was none left that survived or escaped. But the king of Ai they took alive and brought him near to Joshua. When Israel had finished killing all the inhabitants of Ai in the open wilderness where they pursued them, and all of them to the very last had fallen by the edge of the sword, all Israel returned to Ai and struck it down with the edge of the sword. And all who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all people of Ai. But Joshua did not draw back his hand with which he stretched out the javelin until he had devoted all the inhabitants of Ai to destruction. Only the livestock and the spoil of that city Israel took all the as their plunder, according to the word of the Lord that he commanded Joshua. So Joshua burned Ai and made it forever a heap of ruins, as it is to this day. And he hanged the king of Ai on a tree until evening. And at sunset Joshua commanded, and they took his body down from the tree and threw it at the entrance of the gate of the city and raised it over it in a great heap of stones, which stands there to this day.
We did it. All 29 verses. Wonderful. Good morning, church. Thank you, Tim, for reading for us. It's a lot. Welcome. If this is your first Sunday with us, we're kind of in the middle-ish of a section of Joshua, and so you've got some catching up to do, but I'm going to catch you up as we can, and we just heard the story of what happened in Joshua chapter 8, and we're going to walk through it a little bit slower so that you can get all of the fun tidbits and see, what does this have to do with God's people? What does this have to do with me today? And so we'll get caught up, we will dive in deep, and we're going to learn a ton. If you didn't notice, Joshua chapter 7 was a chapter that we skipped from the platform, but many of you watched online. We have a video discussion where Brad and Lev and myself sat down and we talked through Joshua 7 to hear what happened there, the bad things that happened. And then today we're going to see, what do we do about all those things? If you didn't get a chance to watch that, go watch that. It's on YouTube. It's on our website, citybridgechurch.org. We'd love for you to join us for that. When I was 16 and a half, I started driving. And some of you guys know that I have a long history of being reckless behind the wheel. I've just had a couple notable car accidents, and none of them were my fault, which is great news, I would tell my parents. But before any of that, I had learned how to drive. I'm driving a 1988 Honda Accord LXI sedan. It's got a sunroof. It's got power windows. It was lovely. My dad bought it when I was 6 months old, and now I was driving it. But there came a time when I was driving it when the battery died. And so my dad said, well, I'm going to teach you how to jump the battery. And so he pulled up my mom's van. He showed me positive, negative ground. We're going to do all this. Great, wonderful. And then a whole week goes by. That battery's holding on strong, but now I see that it's dead again, right outside my house. And I thought, good thing I know how to jump a car battery. I'm a man. I'm an adult, practically. I'm well over 16 at this point. And so I just think, okay, I've got this. And so I go get my mom's keys out of the kitchen, and I drive the van, and we're nose to nose with my car. And then I put the jumper cables is what they're called. I've never done this before. Jumper cables on her battery, and then I go put them positive, negative to ground, and then I go to her car, and I turn her car on. And if you've jumped a car before, you probably know that the car's already supposed to be on, because if you turn it on and the jumper cables are already attached, what's going to happen is they're going to supercharge the current, and the jumper cables are going to melt into the plastic of both vehicles. And that's actually not good for cars or jumper cables. And so I was confused. I was looking at them sizzle and melt into the plastic. And I thought, this is not at all what I learned how to do. So I decided to turn my mom's car off. That seemed like the right thing to do. And then I went inside, and I said, Dad, I need your help jumping my car again, just one more time, but you should know we need new jumper cables. And so he stood out joyfully. He comes on out, and he was shocked, if you can believe it, that I had melted jumper cables into both cars, and all that was left is the little metal pieces on the battery. So he got some gloves, he took them off, and he said, why didn't you come get me? It was 100 steps away. Inside that, when you came in to get keys for Mom's van, I was just one room over. I would have loved to help you, and I would have loved it if we didn't melt your mom's bumper. This van's just about a year old, and it would have been great if that was nice and new. And I said, well, I'd seen it done before, and I remembered all the steps for the most part. So surely I felt confident I could do this. And sure enough, my dad went and he bought me a new battery. He bought me jumper cables for my car. He bought my mom new jumper cables. And he asked me to wash my mom's car sometime. And I washed it, and you'd never believe it. Those burnt parts on the bumper, they're still there to this day. I'm pretty sure. I don't know who's driving that van. But my dad, in grace, he stepped in and he said, hey, let's do this the way we're supposed to. Let's do this my way. In Joshua chapter 7, we saw Joshua say, oh, we marched around Jericho and the walls fell. We know what we're doing. So the next step, we're going to go take Ai, and then we're going to take Bethel, and we're just going to keep taking these cities. God gave us the jump start we needed. We blew our horns. It was great. So now, Joshua 7, we're going to go into Ai. There's not that many people there. So instead of sending all of our men, let's send some of them. Let's send a few thousand. That'll be great. And we'll go take the city. It'll be great. We'll have another party. We'll have another city, and we'll just keep working our way through. And then if you did read Joshua 7, you'll see that they actually went in and they were conquered. They had to retreat and draw back because they didn't have enough men, and it wasn't the right way to attack the city. And 12 of Joshua's men, God's army, they were more than 12. There were 36 men killed in that battle, and Joshua was confused. Like, why? We were supposed to win. God made a promise for us to take this land, and we didn't. What was the problem? And the problem was he didn't talk to God about it at all. He didn't go about God's plan. And at the same time, there was sin present in the camp. Because in the previous battle, Achan, an Israelite, had stolen some plunder, some spoils from Jericho, and he hid it in his tent. And that cost him his life, it cost his family their lives, and it cost those 36 men their lives. Because of sin, disobedience, and not seeking God at all, they lost the battle of Ai. But then we get to chapter 8, where God steps in, where Joshua learns, like, oh, I should have talked to God about this. And in Joshua chapter 7, God says, you should have talked to me about this. He spent the first 5 chapters of Joshua, which was several days, forming these people, preparing them to take over, preparing them to walk in the promises, preparing them to know that God's in charge, God is with them, God is there. Yet in Joshua 7, they quickly forgot that they can rely on him, lean on him, trust in him, have faith, and seek him out. So today we're going to see what happens when they actually do that. And we've got 4 movements through the text in Joshua 8, the first 4. We got from fear to faith. We're going to see God's people transition there. We're going to see God's people move from presumption to presence, from retreat to resolve, from conflict to covenant. My buddy Lev's going to hate that I have alliteration in there, but I also have a seminary degree that says that I have to use alliteration in my sermons. Otherwise, they're not cute and catchy and true to the text. But we're going to dive into the text to see, again, we are not Joshua. We are not Israelite army, but we have a God who was the same God of Joshua chapter 8, who is leading us and guiding us today. And that same God who should have come in after Joshua melted the jumper cables figuratively of his army, and he could have shamed Joshua, he says right here in chapter 8, verse 1. And the Lord said to Joshua, do not fear, do not be dismayed. Take all the fighting men with you and arise, go up to Ai. See, I have given into your hand the king of Ai and his people, his city and his land. And you shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king. Only its spoil and its livestock you shall take as plunder for yourselves. Lay an ambush against the city behind it. So these first 2 verses are very restorative. These people were afraid because they lost, but now God is saying, no, have faith, take heart, be encouraged, don't fear, I'm with you, and I have a plan. He should have said, like, hey, buck up, stiffen your upper lip, let's do this. Come on, doofuses, let's get this right this time, let's pay attention. Listen to me, do things my way. But God was gentle, and he was not slow to restore his people. He was quick. He said, don't fear, don't be dismayed. Now go, take all the fighting men. I'm with you. Remember that. And it wasn't until the 3rd or 4th time I read this chapter until it really stuck out to me. This word, all. Take all the fighting men with you. And that word means a ton when you read it in light of Joshua 7, when he sent spies and they're like, let's just take some guys. We don't need to overdo it. Let's just take some guys, we'll take the city, it'll be great. God says, no, this time take all the fighting men. It's going to be overkill. You don't need to take 30,000 men to overtake a city of 12,000. You don't. Take all the fighting men with you. I don't want you guys to get destroyed, but this is an all-in sort of thing. All of my people need to have faith. All of my people need to journey. All of my people need to be all in. Because my promises are for all these people, so I want them all there for it. And then God uses a tense called the prophetic perfect tense. And God says, I have given into your hand the king of Ai. This is the already not yet. And we kind of live in the prophetic perfect tense, but also here God's, hey, I've already done it. And Joshua could turn and say, well, the city's still standing. I don't think you've done anything yet. But instead, Joshua heard God this time, decided to listen to God, decided to seek God. It's like, all right, God has already given him into your hands. But wait, there's more. God is just heaping grace upon grace. It's like, hey, take everyone, go with you. I've already won the battle, but get this. This time, I want you guys to take all the spoils, take all the livestock, all the good stuff that you can use. You can keep it, take it, and use it for me. Use it for your provision. See it as a provision from me. And that God is explicit and direct. He doesn't say, well, don't be like Achan. He should have. But he said, no, if you would go do what I tell you, I want you to have all that stuff. I'm not sending manna every day from heaven, so go take the livestock. Let them be your provision. Go take all the spoils of the city. The sad part is if Achan would have waited from Jericho and just said, I'm not going to, God didn't say we should take that stuff. If he would have waited, he would have been walking in the full provision and promise of God. But instead, he and his family were killed as a punishment for their sin against God that cost the whole nation something. This is one of the areas where I can relate really well. I'm not a patient man, and I also have really good ideas. Just ask me. They're great. It's like, oh yeah, I see a gold bar. I'll take it. I mean, they're all dead. God destroyed their whole city. Why don't I just take this? That sounds like a great way. I see a corner I can cut and no one will know about it. So I'll just do that. It'll be fine. I'm going to bury this under my tent anyway. No one's going to see it until one day, maybe years down the road, I'm walking around in this nice new robe that I stole from Jericho, and then people are wondering why. We like to hide our sin. We like to get caught cutting corners. We like to see how far we can go, how long we can go, getting away with things we don't need to be doing. And I say we because I know for sure it's me, and I'm going to roll the dice and say there's one more plus people in here that could apply to that. But if we can wait on God's timing, which requires trusting in God, which requires leaning in, waiting, and knowing God's plan, which we would argue, I don't fully know God's plan, but he's given us direction. He's giving us this template, this format that we can follow. Operating in faith means that you need to follow the plan. You need to trust that the person leading you is doing the right thing, and then you fall in line. And I wish I trusted God like someone who just came out of Joshua 7 and is now walking in Joshua 8. I wish I was so dependent on his provision. And in reality, I am. He just has to remind me every couple of moments of every couple of days. Like, hey, I've got this. I'm in control. A lot of us we're watching the stock market. We're watching fuel prices go up. We're watching taxes go up or down or up, depends on the day. And we're like, whoa, shoot, my life's about to get really hard. I can't buy my boat for another X amount of years. I can't retire until I really need someone to step in and save the day to turn the stock market around, but our hopes are just going to get crushed by whatever that thing is, whoever that politician, that plan, that legislation, that boss is, when God's got this perfect plan. So we need to remember who's in control. Remember the promise that was made. So Joshua, remember, I've promised you this land and I'm going to give it to you. Know that I'm with you, so walk with me. And we have that same promise as we're going to see when we get to Jesus and we see the promises he has made for us, as long as we seek him out. So now Joshua's been given the instruction, and we see here in Joshua 3, for the next 26 verses, I'm not going to read them all. Tim read them. You guys absorbed them. Many of you have them right there in front of you, and we'll read them throughout the week. But I want to highlight some big things that are going to happen as Joshua has heard from the Lord. So God spoke for 2 verses, and then we get here in verse 3. Joshua and all the fighting men rose to go to Ai. So Joshua chose 30,000 mighty men of valor and sent them out by night and commanded them. He said, behold, you shall lie in ambush against the city behind it. Don't go very far from the city. All of you remain ready. And I and all the people who are with me will approach the city. And when they come out against us, just as before, we shall flee before them, and they will come out after us until we have drawn them away from the city. So we pause there. Joshua's saying, hey, you guys wait over here. We're going to do like we did last chapter. I think that's how they referred to time back then. He said, last chapter, we're going to go approach the city. And they're going to say, what's wrong with these guys? We just beat them and killed 36 of their men. So we're going to draw them in. But you guys are waiting. Wait till we've drawn them all out. And then they will say, they're fleeing from us just as before. And so we will flee from before them. Then you shall rise up from the ambush and seize the city, for the Lord your God will give it into your hand. As soon as you've taken the city, set it on fire. You shall do according to the word of the Lord. See, I have commanded you. And so then Joshua sends them out, and everyone's supposed to go to their battle stations. And in verse 12, Joshua took 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai to the west of the city. And they stationed their forces, the main encampment that was north of the city, and its rear guard west of the city, but Joshua spent the night in the valley. So this is a shift. We went from having fear to walking in faith, and now the shift is from presumption to presence, from presuming upon the Lord, from taking in all of our own strength, all of our own knowledge, and presence, being with them and knowing God is with us. From presuming, like, okay, I'm going to send some guys, y'all go take the city and come back and tell me how great it was, and we'll go follow, to presence. I'm going to be with you. Joshua stayed in the valley with them because God said all the fighting men, take all the fighting men. And so he did. And he was with the people that were supposed to be the decoys that are going to draw the guys out, which is really the most dangerous spot to be. Because what if the guys are running faster than last time? What if I trip while we're retreating and they're able to catch me with their spear? Joshua is saying, I'm going to be right there with you, just as the Lord is right here with us. And here's the plan he's given us, so we're going to do this. I'm going to be with you. So we've got 30,000. I've got 5,000 over here ready to ambush, and I've got my guys over here ready to draw them out. I've got a map that's hard to see, but if you'll look at the map, you can use your phone. Most of us have a 50 zoom. It's really easy to see if you do that. But that is where they're moving from. This right side of the Dead Sea, they took Jericho, and now they're coming across, and you have Ai and you have Bethel. And they're kind of like you have Plano and you have Allen. And so they're coming up from Richardson-ish. And they're going to say, hey, let's go around. But hey, some of you guys, I want you guys to go around the tollway. And I want you to set up shop right there around Coit and Hedgecoats. Because we're going to draw them down to George Bush when they see us coming. And so we're going to go. And so when we go, all the people from Ai, Plano, and even some of the people from Bethel, Allen, are going to come, and they're going to see, like, let's beat these guys. Let's show them what's up. And we're going to draw them all out. But they don't know that I've got people right on the Frisco border that are ready to light both towns on fire. And the Lord has done this because it's easy. And so he leads them out, and they lay in wait, and they're ready to ambush. And so we can take that map down, because now you can visually picture it. You've driven these streets of Ai and Bethel and the outskirts of Jericho, which in this context would be Wiley, I think. But stay with me. So there's a battle plan. And these people have heard God's battle plan before. It was, hey, go march around the city one time. The next day, do it again. Don't say anything. And the next day, do it again. Do it again. And so they're used to kind of wonky battle plans. And this one seems a little more strategic, but also a little bit more militaristic to trust. Like, okay, maybe God isn't just going to knock down every wall by my marching and blowing of my trumpet. He wants me all in. And so this time I play a significant role. I have specific things I have to do to engage in the conquering, but God's already conquered. He's already delivered the king. He's already brought him to us. And so we've got to play our part. And Joshua stayed in the valley. He didn't presume, he was present. He didn't operate on his own plan. He operated on the knowledge that God is with him. Because if I'm Joshua, I'm going to say, well, what if we had most of our guys here with me so that when we draw them out, we could actually just beat them, and then we have maybe 100 that light both cities on fire, and that'd be a whole lot easier. And it would make me feel safer, because I don't want to be a part of the crew that might trip and get stabbed and killed. But he says, no, this is what God has said very specifically, and God is with us. So I'm going to be careful in preparing and positioning these troops. And there's this little part here where it's like all of Bethel and all of Ai. were drawn out. They're supposed to conquer Ai, and then they're supposed to conquer Bethel, and then they're supposed to conquer. But what God has done is given them a 2-for-1. He's saying, hey, if you do it this way, both towns are going to come out, and you're going to be able to take both towns. Both cities, both fortresses are going to be yours. That's more spoils for you to plunder. That's more livestock, more provision. So he's saying, hey, trust me in this. I'm with you from presuming to presence. And then in this next part, so Joshua told him, hey, this is probably what's going to happen. In the next part, hey, this is where it happens. This is the literary device Joshua uses, or the author uses through the whole text, is there's this very detailed, drawn-out instruction of events. And then the next part of the passage is the very detailed, drawn-out actual happenings of the events based on the instructions that they received. And not once have we seen someone from Israel army say like, hey, this goes exactly the way God said it would go. We should trust him the first time. We should ask him about everything. But still, the first 3 verses-ish, he's got very specific instructions. And then we get into, well, how is this going to play out? So, verses 14 through 17, Joshua he puts all the people, it happens, and they draw them out. And then Joshua turns and he sees the cities up in smokes. And that's the sign for him to know, like, oh, they went in and they burned down the city. Plano and Allen are on fire. We can turn, all right? We could stop at George Bush. We can turn around. These guys that were charging at us as we were retreating, they've got all the confidence in the world because they see that we're retreating, we're scared, we're worried. We've got our white flag. Now we turn, and then in verse 18, the Lord said to Joshua, stretch out the javelin that is in your hand toward Ai, for I will give it into your hand. And then Joshua stretched out the javelin that was in his hand towards the city, and the men in the ambush rose quickly out of their place. And as soon as he stretched out his hand, they ran, entered the city up in smoke. And the others came, verse 22, out from the city against them. So they were in the midst of Israel, some on this side, some on that side, and Israel struck them down until there was none left that survived or escaped. But the king of Ai they took alive and brought him near to Joshua. This is the key fulcrum of the passage. Now we're pivoting into from fear to faith, from presumption to presence, and now we're going from retreating to resolving. Because retreat is a fear word. Retreat is a presumption word. Retreat is running away. And they were forced to run away the first time because they were dependent on their own. I was forced to run inside and find my dad because I was going on my own. And now there's sparks and steam, and I don't understand chemistry enough to figure out what's going on, so I'm going to go get my dad. This is them going from, we actually trust God, and we're going to move to, we're going to resolve to execute the strategy that God has done. And so they turn and they get all the city and they get the king. And there's something really unique that happens in this. That he said, take your javelin and stretch it out towards the city. God loves doing this. We can read about him doing this through Moses. Take your staff and hit the rock. Take your staff and raise it up. And you just hold your staff up and you're going to win. All you have to do is this. And if you get too tired, I'm going to have some buddies hold your hand up. A javelin is a long stick and it's got a pointy end. And I've got a buddy who threw javelin at Texas, at a school in College Station. And you guys remember D-Marv. And I was asking him, because he threw javelin. I said, what's the key to success? And he said, the most important thing to the javelin is you have to throw it. You can't just run with it, because then you've crossed the penalty line and it's a fault and you don't count. So he said, you pull it back and you throw it. So God should have said to Joshua, hey, take the javelin and throw it, and it'll go through the king, and then everyone will say victory. And if I'm Joshua, I'm saying, God, that'd be cool if you let me do that. Would you trust my plan? But no, Joshua's saying, all I have to do is hold out my javelin? I don't get to poke anyone with it? I'm just walking towards the city. That's a power move. You see there's battle happening, and you're just walking towards a burning city with a javelin. But God is the one who has already given the king into his hand. Joshua, you don't have to fight to win this battle. Just do what I say and be with me, and I will give him into your hand. In chapter 7, the Israelite army was forced to retreat. In chapter 8, they chose to retreat for the sake of resolving and making right what God decided to make right. And then verse 24 is very casual in the power that it actually has. I don't know why it's written this way, but it says, when Israel had finished killing all the inhabitants of Ai in the open wilderness where they pursued them, and all of them, the very last, had fallen to the edge of the sword, Israel returned to Ai and struck it down. It's just very casual. These men killed everyone. But that wasn't the point of the passage. So the author of Joshua isn't trying to highlight, like, look at all these men they killed. They did great. It was more like, this is a passing blip in the overall strategy. They were being obedient, but their obedience needed to go back to Ai so they could get their plunder, get their spoils, all of that. Verse 25, all who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all the people of Ai. But Joshua did not draw back his hand with which he stretched out the javelin until he had devoted all the inhabitants of Ai to destruction. Only the livestock and the spoil of that city Israel took as their plunder, according to the word of the Lord that he commanded Joshua. And so Joshua burned Ai and made it forever a heap of ruins, as it is to this day. And he hanged the king of Ai on a tree until evening. And at sunset Joshua commanded, and they took down his body from the tree and threw it at the entrance of the gate of the city and raised over it a great heap of stones, which stands there to this day. We've got two great heaps. We've got ruins and we've got stones as Joshua finishes what God had called him to do, as Joshua finishes the plan and follows through with what God had called him to do. So we went from presumption to presence, and now we're going from conflict to covenant. There was conflict. There was conflict between God and his people because one man had sinned, and so the whole country, the whole people group was failing. There was conflict because now there's actual battle. And in the battle, you're fighting, you're straining, you're like, God, why can't the walls just fall down at this time? But you're actually having to battle. And from the conflict, they get to be reminded of the covenant that God has made them. They're going victory with a vision. They're fulfilling what God has said, the total destruction of Ai's inhabitants. They left no stone unturned, literally. Because the first time they tried, they didn't follow God's orders because God didn't give them orders because they didn't seek God and they were impatient and they went on their own. This time they're very clear. They want every jot and every tittle of the text that God has commanded them to be fulfilled. And so they were very clear. Everyone is dead. Make sure everyone is dead before we get the livestock, before we go get our robes and our gold bars and whatever else they're taking. Before that happens, let's do everything God had said. And so they made sure the king was dead. They hung him from a tree all day. And then at night, they made sure he was dead and they buried him under a great heap of stones. So you've got a great heap that was the city. Now it's been burned down. It's just a pile of stones. And you got a great heap of stones that is now over the king to show conquering, to show victory. And so Joshua is now at a place where he can say, we did exactly what God told us to, and it went exactly as well as God had planned it, if not better, because now we've got more than God had given us before. And we've been reminded that we can trust God. I love the fact that he's using stones again. We've seen stones before in Joshua. Hey, I'm going to ask you to put some stones in this river as you cross it. I'm going to ask you to put some stones on the other side so that when your children ask, you can tell them what God did when he dried up the river and we were able to walk across to safety. Now we've got stones over a king so that I can tell my children when they ask, why are those stones there? I can say, God is a God of victory and he won this battle. He gave us this king. He gave us this nation. He gave us these things by his own power and his own might because we were obedient. And that's the covenant that we've made. He says, if you obey, you will get things your way. So if you obey, you're going to get spoil, plunder, livestock. You're going to get cities that weren't yours, that you didn't build, and I'm going to give them to you. You're going to eat fruit from trees that you didn't plant, vegetables from gardens that you didn't tend to. So when you see that heap of stones, remember, it's much more than, we killed him good. It's God did a work that transformed and saved and renewed and made us victorious. And they're still there to this day as of this writing, which is basically saying, hey, there's going to be a remembrance. I want you to look and see and remember what God has done. Because Joshua's not going to say like, oh, we had so many guys and all of our guys went in and we destroyed the city. And I had my javelin and I was holding it. Well, how many guys did you kill, Joshua? Well, no, I was walking with it the whole time. Well, that's not impressive. Because that's not the story he's supposed to tell. He's supposed to tell a story of a God who gave them victory beyond their own control, their own preference, their own desire, and their own ability. And a God who gave them this great gift moments after they chose to disobey, moments after they chose to sin against him. God is quick to restore. God is quick to resolve conflict and remind us of promises that he's made and promises that he's keeping, because they walked in faith. So God fully restores in Joshua 8 with discipline after sin is dealt with in Joshua 7. And the difference between Joshua 7 and Joshua 8 is God, or man's awareness of God. So I've made this fun little chart called the contrast of AI, defeat versus victory. This left side is the generic theme of what happened. The middle is the Joshua 7, what happened the first time. The right side is what happened in Joshua 8. We're comparing and contrasting the defeat versus the triumph. Spiritually, their awareness of God in Joshua 7, they were kind of obedient because they did march around Jericho, but Achan was disobedient, and his sin brought a curse upon the people. But in Joshua 8, you see there was full obedience. Sin had been dealt with, the nation is consecrated, but more than that, they were very clear about every part of the battle plan that they would obey, even if they thought they had a better plan, which brings the military approach. The presumption in Joshua 7, let's just send a few people. We can conquer them, and they're defeated. Versus the dependence in Joshua 8. The full army is deployed as commanded. All the fighting men of valor are deployed, and victory comes arguably quite easily because it was God's to give, and he gave it freely. And in Joshua 7, the leadership, they were relying upon themselves. Joshua was like, I'm the leader, I'm in charge, I'll do things my way, but no divine guidance. They didn't wait on God. Versus submission. Direct divine instructions and strategies are followed. And so the outcome's obvious between Joshua 7 and Joshua 8. They were defeated in Joshua 7. They thought they had the advantage, but they had to retreat. Versus the victory they get in Joshua 8. Total success achieved through God's brilliant strategy of ambush. And then the morale. At the end of Joshua 7, it says that Israel's hearts are melted. They're gripped by fear. And then in Joshua 8, AI's hearts melt. Terror falls upon the enemy of Israel. This is the journey of God's people. And if you stay with us through the rest of Joshua, you're going to see this pattern might repeat itself. I'm not going to tell you any spoilers, but I'd encourage you to read Joshua 9:10. Just stay with us. We'll walk through it together. But this pattern of fear to faith, this pattern of presumption to presence, retreat to resolve, conflict to covenant, and to sum this pattern up, it's defeat to victory. And we have victory in the battle because God gives it. And the real victory that we have today is God's battle plan as well. Because we haven't done a whole lot. We're not the ones out there doing the work. We're not the ones who are having to deal with our sin being paid for, because God had a plan as well. It wasn't, I'm going to draw them out and then ambush from the back. God had a plan to defeat sin from the very moment in Genesis 3 when sin was found out and dealt with. And he said one day that I'm going to crush the serpent's head. Death is going to be defeated. And we see through Jesus' life, God had a plan that made no sense compared to what we thought of. The king should come down and overtake. And the Jews thought that's what Jesus was going to do. The king is going to come down and he's going to reign on the throne. And they were very concerned when they saw that Jesus had actually died. That wasn't the plan. He's supposed to come restore Israel at this time. Jesus was supposed to come as a king, but he came as a servant. Jesus was supposed to come and be in control and authority, but instead he stood firm and he submitted to what he needed to submit to walk through with God's perfect plan. Because the strategy didn't make sense if you ask the Jews, like, well, no, if you're God, why don't you go overthrow Caesar and Rome, and then we can just let the Torah reign and rule in our hearts? And God said, no, there's more than the law, and I'm going to give you more than you ever asked for through Jesus. So Jesus was beaten, whipped, and hung on a cross and died. And of course they're confused. But he died because there was sin present in the camp. He died because there was sin in and amongst God's people. And he said, instead of all those people dying and being separated forever, my son will die to deal with the sin that's present in the camp. My son will restore. My son will make new. My son will bring victory, because on the third day, Jesus rose from the grave, bursting forth in glorious day, as we like to sing. And he restored, he made new, he made right, and he called his people to walk in freedom and to tell other people about what he had done. And then we can read through the Bible more and more about the promises that he made, the promises that he kept, and the calling that he's put on his people. First and foremost, he says, if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus is Lord, you will be saved. And from that salvation, you are walking in a new life. It's no longer you who live, but it's Christ who lives in you. And if Christ lives in you, you have victory in so many ways. Victory from condemnation. We're free from the shame. We're free from the judgment. We're free from the pain of the sin we were bound by. And Romans 8 says there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. In that, we have victory through Jesus. We are powerful over the dominion of sin. We already have victory from the punishment of sin. Our punishment is hell and separation from God, but Jesus has won that battle on our behalf. And if we walk in him, we walk free from the power of sin. But too often, we walk as Joshua 7 Israelites. It's like, yeah, I've seen what God can do, and now I'm going to do this because God's made me powerful. And we go do something on our own only to get snared by sin again, by getting stuck in a rut and spinning our tires and falling and falling and falling, only to remember to turn back to look to who actually has a plan to make us victorious. We have freedom and victory in Christ that's an incorruptible, complete, and pure inheritance. God's people, they got to take AI and some livestock and some gold, some silver, maybe some cool robes, I don't know. But they took some things that would provide for them until their next victory, where they could get more things to provide for them as God provided. Our provision is incorruptible. Our provision is complete, and it's pure because we have victory through Jesus' death and resurrection. And because of that, in 1 Peter 1, according to God's great mercy, he's caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus from the dead, to an inheritance that's imperishable, undefiled, unfading, and it's kept in heaven for you, who by God's power are being guarded through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. We have this inheritance that's ours. He's already given it into our hands. We only need to walk in him. The promise he made to us isn't conditional this time. It's not, hey, the more obedient you are, the better the promise will be. It's no, if you confess and you believe, you'll be drawn to repentance. You'll be walking in freedom. You'll be living in grace, and you receive that same thing. Whether you've repented on your 10th day or your last day, the same promise is for all of us because we're adopted into the family. The ultimate victory is that we are no longer named and bound by this world and its standards, but we are his sons and we are his daughters, and we are co-heirs with Christ, his very son, the one who did all the work. We get all the inheritance that he got as co-heirs. That's way better than the plunder that we're seeking. That's way better than the spoils that we're looking for freedom in. Instead, it's all through Jesus' life, his death, and his resurrection, and now it's given to us. Victory in our battles, victory in our life beyond Joshua 8 doesn't mean that we've survived hard things. It means that we inherit the kingdom. We don't just get a second chance like they did in Joshua 8. Like, hey, do better this time. Listen to me this time. We get a new life. There are people in here who have very visibly new lives because of what Jesus has done. Their patterns are different. Their families are changed. Their grandchildren are going to tell different stories than they tell about their grandparents. That's the inheritance we have because Jesus has won this battle on the cross. So if you're in this room and you feel like you're white-knuckling, you're striving, you're straining yourself, and you're coming up with your own plans. Well, that didn't work. Let me try this. Well, that didn't work. I know how to do this. I'll just put this on, and I'll melt the whole car. It'll be great. Stop striving. There's rest. There's wholeness, and there's a promise for victory in Jesus. If you're in this room and you're here because you got busted, you got found out and you didn't know where to turn, or you're about to get busted and you're worried about what to do with all that, man, you're in the right spot. You're not going to get busted. You're not going to be met with shame as it's heaped upon you. Instead, you're going to be met with grace. God didn't say, "What were you thinking?" He said, "Hey, be strong. Don't fear. I'm with you." And he's made that same promise to us. You aren't bound by that anymore. It's for freedom that you've been set free. And so walk in freedom to enjoy the newness of life that he has for us. So Joshua's people learned from defeat in Joshua 7. They learned from from triumph in Joshua 8. And we are the same. We have learned from our defeat, and we're learning from our triumph. Regardless, we have to walk in faith and not fear. Regardless, we can't presume upon the Lord. We have to recognize his presence is with us. We have to stop retreating and running away from everything and instead resolve ourselves to run to Jesus, who has the perfect promise and fulfillment for us. And then forget about the conflict. We have a covenant with God that he's making all things new again. Let's pray to our God in heaven and celebrate that newness that he gives us. God, we thank you. We thank you for a historical narrative that we get in the Bible that tells us the story of who you are and what you've done to save your people, to set them free. We thank you. Would we learn from it? As we read these old stories, would we learn that you have a perfect plan still, and we know how the story ends? So submit us to that plan and help us to walk in the freedom that comes from it. And God, would we remember who you are? You're loving, you're kind, you're gracious, you're slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, and so we can trust you with everything. So give us the faith to do that. We thank you for Jesus, who's redeemed us from the pit, who's made us new, who's set us free, and continues to invite us in every single moment of every single day. And it's in the power of his name that we get to pray. Amen.